Imagine you were born in a hole in the ground, a concrete cylinder 144 floors deep, buried under the earth. You've never seen the sky, neither did your parents, neither did theirs. There is only one window to the outside world, a single blurry image projected on the wall of the cafeteria at the very top. And what it shows you, every single day of your life, is a dead world. Brown, poisoned hills, a ruined city crumbling on the horizon, a sky the color of ash. The message is simple, and you absorb it before you can even speak. Out there is death. In here is the only life there is. So no one asks to leave. Because in this place, asking to leave is the one thing you can never take back. If you so much as say the words out loud, "I want to go outside," they don't argue with you. They don't stop you. They give you exactly what you asked for. They put you in a suit, they open the airlock, and they send you up the hill to your death. And on your way out, they ask you to do one small thing, one final chore. To clean. To take a scrap of wool and wipe the poison and the grime from the lenses of the cameras, so that everyone left inside can keep watching that dead world in high definition. And here is the part that has haunted this silo for generations. Everyone swears they'll never do it. Every single person sent to clean promises screaming that they won't give the people who exiled them the satisfaction. And then they get up there, and they clean anyway. Every time. No one knows why. This is the world of Hugh Howey's Silo Trilogy: Wool, Shift, and Dust. Over the next hour, I'm going to tell you the entire story, start to finish, exactly as the books tell it. How this world was built, who buried humanity underground, and why. And the single devastating lie that everything you just heard is standing on. Because that dead world on the wall, it isn't quite what it seems. Let's go inside. Before we meet our first character, you need to understand the rules of the world he lives in, because everything that follows turns on them. The silo is a single concrete cylinder buried in the earth, 144 floors, top to bottom, connected by one enormous spiral staircase. There are no elevators. There is no way out. Thousands of people are born, live their entire lives, and die inside this tube, and not one of them has ever set foot on the surface. Everything is rationed and controlled, even children. You're not allowed to have one until someone else dies and a slot opens up, and then you have to win a lottery just for the chance to try. And then there's the one law that towers over all the others. Never, ever express a desire to go outside. Don't ask. Don't even say it out loud in anger. Because in the silo, wanting to leave isn't a crime you go to prison for. It's the crime they grant. Say those words, and they don't argue. They put you in a protective suit, they seal you in the airlock, and they send you up and out into the poisoned world to die. But first, they ask you to do one final chore. On your way to your death, you're expected to walk to the cameras mounted on the surface, the cameras that feed that grim, blurry image to the screen inside, and to wipe their lenses clean with pads of wool, so that the people you're leaving behind can keep watching the dead world in sharp focus. That's where the book gets its name: Wool, the Cleaning. And here's the detail that haunts everyone. Every person sent out swears they won't do it. They scream that they'll never give their executioners the satisfaction of a clean lens. And then, every single time, they get up there, and they clean anyway. Nobody who stays behind understands why. It's become a kind of dark magic. Something about the outside changes a person's mind in their final minutes. Hold on to that mystery. It matters more than anything else in this entire story. Now, our first character. His name is Holston, and he's the sheriff of the silo, the man whose entire job is to enforce these rules. And as our story opens, he is climbing the great staircase to the top floor to to break the biggest rule of all. He walks into his own office, sets down his badge, and tells his stunned deputy the unthinkable. He wants to go outside. Why would the lawman himself choose to die? To answer that, we have to go back 3 years, to his wife, Allison. Allison worked in the silo's IT department, and she was gifted with computers. So gifted that she figured out how to recover files that had been deleted, and then, out of pure curiosity, she pointed that talent at the silo's own ancient servers. What she dug up broke something open in her. She found the ghosts of erased history, and the picture they painted was this. The silo has an official past, one great uprising long ago that supposedly destroyed all records and left everyone with a blank slate. Everyone's taught that as the reason no one knows anything about the old world. But Allison's recovered files told a different story. There hadn't been one uprising. There had been many. A violent revolt roughly once every generation, for as far back as the fragments went. And then, at a certain point in history, they simply stopped. Allison put the pieces together, and the conclusion terrified her. What if people kept rebelling because they kept discovering some buried truth? And what if the uprisings stopped not because people got happy, but because whoever runs this silo finally got good enough at hiding that truth and at erasing everyone who found it? She'd found the pattern, and she was now standing exactly where every previous rebel had stood, right before they vanished from the record. Once you believe one way to know for sure, you have to go and see it with your own eyes. So Allison, to the silo, appeared to lose her mind. She said the forbidden words, and the machine did what it always does. Holston had to stand in that cafeteria and watch through the very screen he'd spent his life defending. He watched his wife, faceless behind a silver visor, walk out onto the hill and scrub the lenses clean. He watched her take her time and do it well. And then she stepped back, looked up into the camera, and waved at him, and she walked away, up the slope, until the toxins ate through her suit, and she collapsed on the hillside and lay still. Was that wave a goodbye? Or was she trying to tell him something she'd learned out there? 3 years he lived with that question. 3 years he carried the lottery ticket for the child they never got to have, and finally he couldn't stand not knowing. So he confessed the same crime. He asked to follow her. They suit Holston up, seal him in, and open the door to the forbidden world. And this is the moment the silo's first great secret goes off like a bomb. Because when Holston steps outside and looks through his visor, he does not see a dead world. He sees paradise. Rolling green hills, grass under his boots, a sky the exact impossible blue of the old children's books, white clouds drifting, living things moving in the air. His wife was right. The gray, poisoned view they'd all been staring at their whole lives was the lie. Overwhelmed, weeping with joy, Holston cleans the lenses, not out of hatred, but out of pity, so that everyone still trapped inside can finally see the beautiful truth. Then he turns and starts climbing the hill, toward a distant, gleaming city, toward Allison. But partway up, his stomach ignites. He doubles over. His vision floods white, then goes completely black. Choking, panicking, he finds a jagged rock and hacks at the latches of his helmet until it cracks free. And the real world hits him like a fist to the chest. Brown, dead grass, a gray, lifeless sky. No green, no blue, nothing alive at all. He looks at the visor in his hands and sees what it really is. A tiny screen, its pixels flickering out. The green paradise was never real. It was a second lie. A fake image played on the inside of the helmet glass. That is the secret of the cleaning. That's why every condemned person cleans and no one understands it. The silo shows its people an ugly world to keep them from ever wanting to leave. And the suit shows the ones being exiled a beautiful world, so that in their final minutes, out of love, They'll wipe the lenses to share a paradise that doesn't exist and walk happily to their deaths. Holston dies on that hillside, right beside the boulder that was once his wife. 2 lies deep, and he goes to his grave never learning who built either one of them. But somebody did build them. Somebody is out there, watching every cleaning, controlling every screen. And to find out who, we need to follow the one person this silo should never have let anywhere near the truth. With Holston dead on the hill, the silo needs a new sheriff. And to understand who gets chosen and why it matters so much, you first have to understand how power actually works in this buried world. On paper, the silo is run by a mayor. Right now, that's Johns, an old woman who's held the office for decades, who fills her quiet hours knitting and watching the dead view she's supposed to protect. Beside her, just as old, is her lifelong deputy, Marnes. The 2 of them have kept the peace up top for a generation. But there's another power in the silo, and everyone quietly knows it's the real one. IT, the technology department. IT guards the servers. IT writes and interprets the pact, the rule book that governs every life in the silo. And most importantly, IT builds the cleaning suits. The department that sends people out to die is the same department that controls all the information. Remember that. It's the engine of everything. Now, choosing a sheriff. Marnes already has someone in mind, and it's an unusual pick. Not a lawman at all. A mechanic, a shift foreman from the very bottom of the silo, a woman named Juliet. Jules to the people who work beside her. She's a wrencher, a stubborn, gifted engineer who keeps the silo's dying generator alive with her bare hands, and who has never once cared about the politics happening 100 floors above her head. Years ago, Marnes went down to mechanical to work a suspicious death, and he never forgot the way that entire rough department bent around this one woman's competence. If anyone could bring order to a place, he figured, it was her. So Johns and Marnes do something they haven't done in years. They leave the comfortable top of the silo and they climb all the way down to the bottom to recruit her by hand. And that long descent is our tour of this whole world. Bracelets. Picture it. 144 floors, stitched together by a single spiral staircase winding down through solid rock. No elevators, so an entire class of people called porters spends their lives running up and down these steps, carrying every message, every meal, every machine part on their backs. And as Johns descends, she watches the world change floor by floor. At the top, IT and the officials, obsessed with that blurry image of the surface. In the middle, the farms, the hydroponic gardens, the nurseries, the green heart that feeds everyone. And at the very bottom, in the heat and the grease and the endless roar of the machines, mechanical, where the workers who literally keep everyone breathing are looked down on as dirty and low. It's a society sorted entirely by altitude. The higher your floor, the higher your worth. And almost nobody ever moves. They find Juliet exactly where you'd expect her. Buried inside the failing generator, filthy, exhausted, refusing to leave until it's fixed. She doesn't want the badge. She's got real work to do. She thinks the whole thing is a distraction. But she makes them a deal. Give her 1 week and shut down the silo's power for a proper power holiday, and she'll tear the generator apart and rebuild it to run quiet and safe for a generation. Do that and she'll come up top and be their sheriff. Johns takes her hand, feels the strength and the warmth in that grip, and knows she's found the right person. Someone honest, someone who fixes broken things. Which is exactly the problem, because there is one man up top who does not want an outsider from the down deep wearing a sheriff's star and asking questions. The head of IT. A small, soft-spoken, utterly forgettable man named Bernard. And the last thing a man like Bernard can afford is a sheriff who came up fixing things she wasn't supposed to touch. So on the long climb back home, something quiet and monstrous happens. The journey up is even harder than the journey down, and it takes days. As they near the floors of IT, old Johns is exhausted, and she keeps sipping water from Marnes's canteen to keep going. And that water has been poisoned. By the time the sickness hits her, it's far too late. She collapses on the stairs. She dies there in Marnes's arms, the old deputy weeping into his mustache, and in her final clear moment, she understands the truth. The poison was never meant for her at all. It was meant for Marnes. For anyone getting in the way of the people who really run this place. And here's the chilling part. Nothing happens. No investigation, no suspect. The mayor is simply said to have died of old age on a hard climb, and the silo mourns and moves on, none the wiser. But if you were paying attention, the message could not be clearer. There is a hidden hand inside this silo. It kills quietly, from the shadows, and it will pay any price to protect its secrets. And that hand has just been forced to watch a stubborn, brilliant engineer from the absolute bottom of the world pin a lawman's star to her chest. Her name is Juliet. She fixes broken things for a living, and she is about to start pulling on the one loose thread this entire silo was built to keep hidden. So Juliet comes up top and becomes sheriff, and she does the job the only way she knows how, the way she'd tear into a broken machine. She doesn't accept the story she's handed. She looks for the part that doesn't fit. That doesn't fit is personal. Years ago, down in mechanical, she was in love with a man named George Wilkins. George got curious about the old world. He found buried schematics and data he was never meant to see. And then one day, George turned up dead. Officially an accident, maybe a suicide, but Juliet never believed it for a single second. She's always been certain George was murdered for what he found, and that unhealed grief is the real engine under everything she does. Now, finally, as sheriff, she has the access to chase it. Blindness. To get inside IT's hidden files, she turns to a young technician she trusts, a kid from the down deep named Scotty, brilliant with computers, and asks him to help her hack into what IT is keeping locked away. And IT kills him for it. Scotty turns up dead too, another tidy little suicide. Two people Juliet cared about, both killed the instant they got too close to the truth. She is completely done believing in coincidences. Pulling that thread leads her straight back to the case her predecessor died over, Holston and his wife Allison. Juliet recovers Allison's old work, the deleted files, the hidden history of repeated uprisings, and now, as sheriff, with access to the evidence, she starts to see the machine behind it all. And because she's a mechanic, she sees something no politician ever could: the cleaning. Here's what she realizes. The suits they send people out to die in are sealed with heat tape, the exact kind of sealing tape Juliet has worked with her entire career down in mechanical. And the tape IT uses is deliberately, precisely bad. Cheap, designed to fail. A cleaner's suit isn't built to protect them for as long as possible. It's engineered to break down out there in the toxic air on a schedule, to give them just enough time to wipe the lenses and then kill them. The cleaning was never an execution the outside world carries out. It's a murder IT commits, disguised as nature. Every "the world is just too poisonous to survive" story is a lie they manufacture, one roll of bad tape at a time. Juliet now knows too much, and the man who runs IT knows she knows. That man is Bernard, and with Mayor Johns conveniently dead, Bernard has quietly taken over as acting mayor too, which means the same person now controls IT, the law, and the silo's government all at once. He moves against Juliet exactly the way this system always moves, not with an argument, but with a sentence. She's arrested on trumped-up charges, unauthorized entry into IT, tampering with IT property, threatening the silo's order. And the punishment for that, of course, is the punishment for everything. They're sending her out to clean. But this time, the silo makes a mistake. Because Juliet isn't some isolated up-top clerk. She has family. The entire down deep, the mechanics and porters and the old electrician Walker who helped raise her. And they are not going to let her die in a rigged suit. Quietly, secretly, word travels down the staircase. And the people of supply, the department that manufactures parts, who've traded favors with Juliet for years, do something dangerous and beautiful. When IT sends down the specs for Juliet's cleaning suit, supply builds it with the good heat tape, the real stuff, the seals that don't fail. They give her the one thing no cleaner in the history of the silo has ever been given: time. So Juliet is marched into the airlock and sent out to die. And just as it did for Holston, her visor lights up with the beautiful lie. Green hills, blue sky, a living world. But Juliet has read Holston's file. She knows exactly what she's looking at. She knows the green is a fake image painted on the inside of her helmet to make her clean. And she reaches up, takes the wool pad they gave her, and she does the one thing no one in living memory has done. She refuses. She does not clean the lenses. She turns her back on the cameras, on the silo, on everyone who condemned her, and she just starts walking, up the hill, away. Back inside, this detonates. A porter sprints down the staircase screaming the news, and it spreads through the silo like fire. She refused to clean. She didn't die at the airlock. She walked over the hill. For a population raised to believe the outside kills you in minutes, a woman calmly walking away is the most subversive thing they've ever witnessed. It's a crack in the whole foundation. Down in the deep, old Walker is so shaken he steps out of his workshop, a place he's barely left in decades, just to be near the disbelief. And Juliet keeps walking. Her good suit holds. The toxins that killed every cleaner in minutes haven't killed her yet. As she climbs toward the crest of the hill, she notices something that confirms everything she suspected. The fake green world in her visor only extends so far. Beyond a certain point, IT's illusion just runs out, because IT itself doesn't actually know what lies over these hills. They've been lying about a world they've never seen. And then Juliet reaches the top of the hill, and she looks down the other side. And the entire scale of the lie hits her at once. Because down there, in a shallow bowl in the dead gray earth, is another silo. A slender tower rising from the ground, exactly like the one she just walked out of. She is not alone. Her people are not the last of humanity huddled in the only shelter on Earth. There are others. How many others she can't yet imagine. But it means the story every generation has been fed, that they are all that's left, that the whole world died and only their little tubes survived, is the biggest lie of all. Poisoned, running out of time, one woman stands on a hill between two buried worlds, and she makes a choice. Not to lie down and die like the others, to walk toward that second silo and find out what's inside it. So let's follow Juliet down into that second silo, and let's see what her refusal to clean has set off back home. Juliet makes it across the dead ground and into Silo 17, barely. And what she finds inside is a nightmare version of her own home. Silo 17 is a ruin. Its lower levels, the entire mechanical section at the bottom, are drowned under a black flood of water. The place is silent, rotting, dead. Except it isn't quite dead, because someone is living here. A wild-haired, bearded man who calls himself Solo. And Solo, it turns out, has survived completely alone in this broken silo for decades, since he was a boy, hiding from whatever catastrophe emptied the place. How a child came to be the last living soul in an entire silo is a story we'll come back to. For now, just hold the image. One lonely man, rattling around 10,000 empty rooms, waiting for someone to come. Juliet and Solo team up. She does the only thing a mechanic knows how to do. She starts trying to fix the place. She wants to pump the floodwater out of the drowned levels, and she does the math, and the answer is brutal. 2 years. 2 years of pumping just to reach the bottom. But Juliet isn't really planning to live here. She has one goal burning in her: to get home to Silo 18, to warn her people, to tell them the truth she's now seen with her own eyes, that they are not alone, that there are other silos, that everything is a lie built on a lie. And meanwhile, back in Silo 18, her legend has lit a fuse. Remember, the whole silo watched Juliet refuse to clean and walk over the hill. To a people crushed under IT's control for generations, that was a spark in a room full of gas. The down deep rises up. Mechanical takes up homemade guns and marches on IT, and Silo 18 tips into open civil war. Floor by floor, up and down that single staircase. And it is not clean, and it is not glorious. It's a slaughter. Good people die on those steps. Knox, the head of Mechanical, is killed. McLean, the head of Supply, the woman whose people risked everything to save Juliet, is killed. Down in his workshop, Old Walker listens to the distant gunfire and blames himself because he knows the truth. It was his idea to swap that heat tape. He started all of this. For Walker does one more thing that matters enormously. He's an electronics genius, and he gets his hands on a radio and repairs it. And when he does, the rebels start picking up transmissions they were never meant to hear. IT has radios. IT has been talking to someone, on channels the rest of the silo never knew existed. It's the first hard proof from the inside that their little world is wired into something much larger. Someone is out there. Someone has been listening the whole time. And that brings us to the most important person Juliet left behind. A young IT technician named Lucas. Lucas is gentle, curious, a little dreamy. He likes to go up top at night and stare at the stars, one of the only people who still wonders about the world above. Juliet befriended him before her exile, and he's been quietly, hopelessly in love with her ever since. But Lucas has also caught the eye of someone far more dangerous. Bernard, the head of IT, has chosen Lucas as his shadow, his apprentice, his successor. And to train a successor, Bernard has to show him the deepest secret in the silo. It's called the Legacy. Hidden in a sealed room beneath IT, it's an archive of the real world, the true history that was erased from everyone else. And through it, Lucas learns the things that reframe the entire trilogy. Their silo is not the only one. There are dozens of silos spread across the poisoned land, each one sealed off and kept ignorant of the others. There is a rulebook, called the Order, that dictates exactly what to do when a silo starts to rebel, how to shut it down, silence it, erase it. And above them all sits one silo in command of the rest. Silo 1. The whole thing is a system, a machine of buried worlds run from somewhere else by someone with a plan. Lucas is being handed the keys to that secret, while the woman who could blow it all open is out there, alive, clawing her way back home. And she does get back. Juliet crosses the dead surface a second time, from Silo 17 to Silo 18, and staggers into her old silo's airlock, half dead, poisoned, burned, but alive. She's nursed back from the edge for weeks, Lucas at her side the entire time, the two of them falling for each other over folded notes and quiet nights. And while she was gone, the uprising reached its verdict. Bernard, the man who poisoned a mayor, who murdered to protect his secrets, who ran IT and the government and the law all at once, is finally exposed. Lucas has proof he killed a man, And so the silo does to Bernard the one thing it does to everyone. They send him out to clean. The master of the cleaning dies on the same hill as all his victims. With Bernard gone and no one left to run against, the people of Silo 18 do something unheard of. They elect the woman who refused to clean. Juliet, the mechanic from the bottom of the world, becomes mayor. And Lucas becomes the new head of IT, holding the silo's darkest secret in his hands. So that's where Wool leaves us. A silo bloodied but awake. A leader who knows there are other worlds out there, and a lonely man named Solo waiting in the ruins of one of them. A radio link cracking open a network no one was supposed to find. But it also leaves us with the biggest questions of all still unanswered. Who built these silos? Who poisoned the world and buried humanity underground? What is Silo 1, and what happened to Silo 17 to leave a child alone in the dark? To answer that, the story does something bold. It stops. It rewinds, hundreds of years, to a sunny day in our own world, before a single silo was ever dug. This is the second book, Shift, and it's the story of how our world ended. To find out who built the silos, the story leaves Juliet behind entirely and drops us into a completely different world. Our world. A sunny, near future, in the United States, a few hundred years before anything you've seen so far. Meet Donald Keene. He's a young, idealistic freshman congressman from Georgia, and before politics, he trained as an architect. One day, he's summoned by the most powerful man in his state, the legendary Senator Paul Thurman, a decorated war hero everyone treats like a living god. Thurman has a job for him, a huge federal project down in Georgia called CADFAC, officially a facility to store the nation's nuclear waste and to host a massive national convention. What Thurman wants Donald to design is strange and specific, a grid of enormous cylinders sunk deep into the earth. Bunkers, hundreds of feet tall, buried underground. Thurman tells him it's for waste containment, for emergencies, for security. And Donald, flattered and ambitious, draws them. He designs the silos. He just has no idea what they're actually for. Freezes around him orbit the people who'll define the rest of the story. His wife, Helen, back home in Savannah. His old college friend, now a fellow congressman, Mick. And Thurman's daughter, Anna, a brilliant woman who was once in love with Donald back in college and who has never quite let go. All of them are being quietly pulled into Thurman's orbit. None of them understand why. So what is it actually for? Here is the monstrous idea at the black heart of this entire trilogy. It's about nanotechnology. Machines so small they're invisible. Microscopic robots that can float in the air, in the water, in your blood. Thurman himself takes nano treatments to heal his body and chase immortality. But Thurman and a small circle of scientists, including a haunted man named Erskine, have realized something terrifying about this technology. Sooner or later, someone, somewhere, is going to weaponize it. And when they do, it will be the perfect apocalypse. An invisible, silent plague of machines that could wipe out the entire human species in days, with no warning, no defense, and no way to ever trace who did it. In their minds, this isn't a maybe, it's a certainty. The end of humanity is coming, and it's coming invisibly. And so this cabal makes a decision so arrogant, so godlike, that it defies belief. If the end of the world is inevitable, then they will be the ones to end it, on their own terms, on their own schedule. Their plan is this: release their own nanos and deliberately wipe out all of humanity above ground. But first, preserve a tiny, controlled remnant sealed safely underground in those silos Donald designed. Keep them down there for 500 years, long enough for the killer machines above to run out and the air to clear. And then, after 5 centuries, let just one silo of survivors walk back out and inherit a clean, empty Earth. As Donald's wife Helen puts it when she starts to grasp the horror of it, they poisoned the whole world, thinking they were doing something good. And that's exactly how it happens. The day the world ends isn't a war, it's a party. A grand national convention is held at the Georgia facility. Thousands of people, dignitaries, families, a huge public celebration, all gathered right on top of the buried silos. And on that day, the plan is triggered. There's an attack, panic, bombs, and in the chaos, the invisible nanos are released into the air. The masses of terrified people are funneled underground, into the silos, for their safety. The doors seal behind them, and above, in a single day, the world dies. Everyone not sealed underground breathes the machines and falls. Donald is down there when he finally understands what he helped build. Not a shelter from the apocalypse itself, with a basement. And in the horror of that day, he loses Helen. His wife doesn't make it into the silo with him. She's out there, in the crowd, in the dying world. And Anna, who orchestrated saving Donald, could save him, but not the woman he actually loved. Donald goes underground carrying a grief that will haunt him for centuries. Because that's the other thing the silos are for. Not just survival. Time. There are 50 of these silos. In the system's own cold language, it's called Operation 50 of the World Order. 50 buried worlds, each packed with survivors, and each one deliberately kept in the dark. The people inside are never told the truth. They're not told about the other silos. They're not told about the old world, or how it ended, or that it was done to them on purpose. Their memories of the surface are chemically erased, suppressed by drugs in their water and their food, and a fake, simple history is written in their place. A single vague uprising long ago to explain why no one remembers anything. Sound familiar? That's the lie Allison cracked open in Book 1. That's the erased past. This, right here, is where it comes from. 50 silos full of people, raised from birth to believe their little tube is all that survived, never knowing the men who buried them are still up there, watching, managing, waiting out the centuries. And to see how a handful of men could possibly run this machine for 500 years, we need to go into the one silo that rules all the others. So how do you run 50 buried worlds for 500 years? The men who built this system solved that problem with one chilling invention. Silo 1 doesn't have generations, it has shifts. Silo 1 is the command silo, the brain of the whole operation. And unlike the other 49, the people inside it know exactly what's going on. It's staffed entirely by men, and here's how they cover 5 centuries. A crew wakes up, works a single 6-month shift running the system, and then goes back into a deep freeze, cryogenic sleep, for years or decades, until it's their turn again. Wake, work, sleep. Wake, work, sleep. A handful of men, leapfrogging across the centuries in their frozen pods, so that the same few people can oversee the entire 500-year plan. The women and children are kept frozen too, held in storage, brought out only when someone decides they're needed. And Donald, the architect who drew the silos, is now one of these men. He's been folded into the shifts. They've given him a new name, Troy. They feed him pills that suppress his memory, handed to him by the silo's gray-haired psychiatrist, Victor, who watches him like a patient. Donald wakes from the freeze, disoriented, grieving a wife he can barely remember, with the constant, gnawing sense that he's forgotten something monstrous. And little by little, across his shifts, he claws that memory back. He reads the order, the master rulebook of the whole system. He watches the monitors, and he reconstructs the full truth. He didn't build a shelter. He built a prison for the last of humanity, and a graveyard for everyone else. He learns that Silo 1 keeps watch over all 50 silos, and that when one of them starts to rebel or learn too much, Silo 1 simply shuts it down, erases it, kills a silo the way you'd kill a program that's misbehaving. The guilt of it nearly destroys Donald, just as it destroyed the man before him. Because Victor, the psychiatrist who knew all of this, who carried the same unbearable knowledge shift after shift, eventually put a gun to his own head. The people running this machine are not triumphant. They're haunted, broken men, medicating themselves to keep functioning inside a horror they can never undo. Also woken into this is Anna, Thurman's daughter, the woman who loved Donald and saved his life. She's brought out of the freeze because she's brilliant, and because certain silos are failing, and the system needs someone to figure out why. And one of those failing silos is number 18, Juliet's silo. The timelines are starting to bend toward each other, but before they touch, the story shows us the single most devastating thing in this entire trilogy. It shows us how a silo dies, and it does it through the eyes of a 16-year-old boy. His name is Jimmy Parker, and he lives in Silo 17. One ordinary day, Jimmy is sitting in class when his mother bursts in and drags him out, her face not angry, but terrified. Silo 17 has begun to rebel, and up in Silo 1, unseen, someone has made the decision to shut it down. Jimmy's father works in IT, and he knows what's coming before anyone else does. The family fights down through a silo that is tearing itself apart. A stampede on the Great Staircase, thousands of panicked people crushing together, gunfire, bodies. In the chaos, Jimmy is separated from his mother. Her last words to him, screamed over the crowd, are, "Get to your father." And he does. His father pulls him into the one place that can be sealed and defended, the IT server room, deep in the silo. He presses a key into Jimmy's hand, shows him how to lock the great door from the inside, and tells him to hide, to survive, to not come out. And then the world outside that door ends. Silo 17 is emptied of life, its people dead on the stairs, in the corridors, in the flooding dark. Everyone Jimmy ever knew, gone in a matter of days. And Jimmy locks the door, and he lives. Alone. For decades. A boy grows into a strange, bearded, muttering man in a tomb of 10,000 empty rooms. He scavenges for food and washers and spare parts. He learns to bury the bodies. He talks to himself just to hear a voice and adopts a cat just to have something alive nearby. He forgets, almost, how to be around other people at all. He gives himself a new name for the only company he has, himself. He becomes Solo. And he waits, year after year, in the dark, until the day a poisoned, half-dead woman named Juliet comes tunneling in from the world outside. Now you know who Solo really is, and you understand why he's the way he is. Meanwhile, back in Silo 1, Donald finally reaches his breaking point. He can't keep taking the pills. He can't keep being a caretaker of the apocalypse. So he starts to fight, quietly, from the inside. And he wakes up the one person he trusts completely, his sister, Charlotte. In the old world, Charlotte was a military drone pilot. She flew unmanned aircraft and guided missiles from a screen far away. That skill, it turns out, is a weapon. Because Silo 1 has drones in storage, and Donald and Charlotte begin to do the one thing no one in this entire system is ever supposed to do. They fly drones up and out over the real surface of the Earth to look, with their own eyes, at what's actually out there. Not the official story, not the doctored feeds, the truth. How far does the poison really stretch? Is the whole world dead, or just the part right around the silos? And that question is the door into the final book. Two rebellions on opposite ends of a dead world about to find each other. Juliet, down in the ruins of Silo 17 with Solo, digging toward a future her masters never approved. And Donald, up in the command silo, sabotaging the machine he built, with his sister at his side and the ghost of everyone he failed at his back. Silo 18 is still rumbling with unrest, and in Silo 1, every alarm that unrest sets off points to the same cold conclusion the order demands. Shut it down. This is dust, and it's where everything finally collides. Now everything the trilogy has been building finally comes together. Book 3. Dust. Two rebellions at opposite ends of a dead world racing toward the same collision. Stabilized. Let's start with Juliet. She's the mayor of Silo 18 now, but she is a terrible fit for the job, because she refuses to lie to her people the way every leader before her did. And she has a problem. Silo 18 is damaged and dangerous after two uprisings, and out there, a short walk across the poisoned ground, sits Silo 17. Broken, yes, but with Solo and those surviving children still in it. Juliet becomes obsessed with a single, forbidden idea: connect the two silos. Dig a tunnel between them so her people have somewhere to run if Silo 18 finally collapses. And here's the wild sealed away. Behind a wall in the depths of Mechanical, Juliet discovers a gigantic machine. An earth-boring digger, buried in the silo since the day it was built. The founders put one in every silo, for reasons the people inside were never told. Juliet doesn't care about the reasons. She fires it up and starts tunneling through solid rock, straight towards Silo 17. But to her own people, this is horrifying. Digging is the ultimate taboo. You do not breach the walls. You do not touch the outside. Half of Silo 18 thinks their mayor has gone as mad as every cleaner before her. Her grip on power is slipping, and every foot of tunnel pushes the silo closer to tearing itself apart all over again. Now cut to the other rebellion, up in Silo 1. Donald and his sister Charlotte are still secretly fighting the system from the inside. And Charlotte, the old drone pilot, keeps sending their salvaged drones farther and farther out over the dead world, pushing past the range anyone in Silo 1 was ever allowed to see. And one flight changes everything. Because the drone flies clean out the other side of the poison. Charlotte says the line that reframes the entire series: "The world isn't gone, just our piece of it. The toxic wasteland isn't the whole planet. It's a zone, a deliberately seeded kill zone of nanos wrapped around the silos to keep everyone penned in. Beyond the hills, past the edge of the poison, the earth is still alive. Blue sky, green land. There is somewhere to go. There always was. The people underground were never saving themselves from a dead planet. They were being held hostage inside a small circle of manufactured death. But you can't rebel against this system without waking the man who designed it to be merciless. Silo 1's true master, Senator Thurman, the shepherd they call him, is thawed out of the deep freeze, and Thurman does not hesitate. Silo 18 is rebelling. The order is absolute. A rebellious silo must be shut down, and Silo 1 has the means built right in. Every silo can be flooded with gas or collapsed entirely with hidden charges, because, as Donald learns, the silos were designed from the start so that only one of them would ever be allowed to survive. All the others are meant to fail. It was never a rescue for humanity. It was a 500-year tournament, and 49 silos were always going to lose. Thurman catches Donald, beats him badly, and locks him away. But the truth Donald and Charlotte uncovered doesn't die in that cell, because it reaches one more person. A young Silo 1 security guard named Darcy stumbles onto Charlotte. onto the notes, onto the drone footage of a living world. And instead of turning them in, Darcy starts to listen. He's the proof of the whole trilogy's quiet argument that when you show ordinary people the actual truth, most of them choose to do the right thing. The system's entire foundation is the belief that people can't be trusted with reality. Darcy and Juliet and Donald are all busy proving that belief wrong. And through it all, there's a fragile lifeline connecting these two worlds: a radio. Donald has been using old channels to reach down into the silos, to warn Juliet, to feed her information, to buy her time. Two people who have never met, on opposite ends of a ruined Earth, the man who drew the silos and the woman clawing her way out of one, quietly working together to bring the whole thing down. The architect, trying to undo his life's work. The mechanic, trying to survive it. But time runs out. Thurman gives the order, and Silo 1 reaches down to do to Juliet's home the thing it has done to rebellious silos for centuries. Gas. Silo 18, Juliet's silo, her home, her people, begins to die. And the man caught at the very center of it is the one she loves most. Lucas, head of IT, keeper of the legacy, the gentle stargazer who nursed her back to life, is down in the server room when the poison comes. And that is where the price of this war comes due. Thurman does it personally. He keeps Lucas talking on the radio, pretending it's a routine call, and then he gives the order. In the server room, a white, sinister mist begins pouring from the vents. All across Silo 18, the airlock doors are thrown wide open, and the poison of the outside world floods in. Lucas runs for the door, but it won't open. He punches his code again and again, growing lightheaded, the gas closing around him. And far below, down in mechanical, Juliet is on the other end of that radio. She hears the boots. She hears the static. She hears his breathing. And then she hears nothing at all. Lucas dies in the room full of the silo's deepest secrets, suffocating on the same poison that's been killing his people for 500 years. And Juliet, helpless, hundreds of floors away, loses her home and the man she loves in the space of a single radio call. She can only stand there and listen to Silo 18 die above her. But here's what Thurman doesn't understand. You cannot terrorize this woman into obedience. Every horror he inflicts only burns away the last of her fear. The gas doesn't get everyone. Down in the deep and out in the tunnel she dug, people survive. And Juliet makes the decision the entire trilogy has been driving toward. No more hiding. No more dying in a hole in someone else's experiment. She gathers every survivor she can, her own people, Solo, the children, and she tells them the truth that Donald and Charlotte's drone confirmed. There is a living world out there, beyond the poison, past the hills. And they are going to walk to it, together, in the daylight. The one thing the founders spent 5 centuries making unthinkable. And up in Silo 1, Donald makes his own final choice. Donald is dying already, beaten by Thurman, his lungs failing, coughing blood. But he has one move left, and it's the biggest one on the board. As long as Silo 1 stands, it can reach down and gas any silo it wants, anytime, forever. So Donald decides to end it, permanently. He tricks his sister into saving herself. He gets Charlotte and the young guard Darcy suited up and headed for the drone lift, the one way up to the surface, refusing to let her stay and die with him. "I love you," he tells her, as the elevator doors close on her screaming his name. But escape costs one more life. As the guards close in on the lift, Darcy throws himself into the gunfire to hold them back, shoves Charlotte inside, and jams the lift free to send her up alone, dying so she can live. Only Charlotte makes it to the surface, and Donald rides down, alone, to the reactor level. where the silo's own self-destruct bomb waits, a weapon the founders built to bring down monsters. Thurman finds him there and shoots him, but it's too late. Bleeding out on the floor, Donald raises his gun, aims it at that great bomb, and pulls the trigger. Silo 1, the command silo, the brain of the whole 500-year machine, detonates and collapses into the earth. Thurman, the shepherd, the man who ended the world to save it, dies in the hole with the thing he built. And up on the surface, Charlotte, in her suit, turns and watches the concrete tower of Silo 1 crack apart and sink into the ground. "Donnie," she whispers. Her brother, the architect who drew the silos and then gave his life to bring them down, is gone. But the hand that reached down to strangle the silos is severed forever. No one will ever gas another silo again. And so we come to the walk. Juliet leads her ragged column of survivors out of the airlock and onto the dead gray ground, the same poisoned earth that killed Holston and Allison and every cleaner before them. They walk, up the hill, over the crest, down the far side and up the next, helmets sealed, air running low, following one stubborn mechanic toward a horizon they were all taught meant certain death. And then, slowly, something impossible happens. The gray begins to change. A hint of pale blue in the sky, then a wash of green on the hills ahead. Grass, real, living grass. Blackbirds gliding on the wind. They have walked out the far side of the poison, out of the manufactured kill zone, and into the living world that was always there, just past the edge of the lie. And one by one, on that green hillside, they reach up and tear off their helmets, and they breathe. Real air, clean air. The first free breath any of them has ever taken. Solo, who spent his whole life alone in the dark. The children, born in a dead silo, who never knew a sky. All of them, standing in the sun. It is not a painless victory. Lucas is dead. Donald is dead. Countless people died on the stairs and in the gas and out on that ground. The world they're walking into is hard and empty and uncertain, but it's real, and it's theirs. For the first time in 500 years, human beings are choosing where they go and how they live. Nobody watching them through a lens, nobody deciding whether they deserve to survive. The cage is open, and they walk out of it. The story ends years later and a long way from any silo. Of what used to be the Carolinas, there's a village. Wooden shelters under real trees, cook fires at night, boats on the water. Deer have come back to the woods, wary of people again, learning to be wild. Children who were born underground now run on a beach, under open stars. And the leader of this fragile little settlement, its mayor, though nobody makes her use the title, is Juliet. The mechanic from the bottom of the world, who refused to clean, who walked over the hill, who dug her way to freedom and dragged a whole people out into the light behind her. Solo is here, no longer alone. Charlotte is here. Elise, one of the lost children of Silo 17, has grown into a young woman who hunts with a bow that once belonged to Juliet. And every so often, another ragged group stumbles out of the hills, survivors from another silo, another buried world, who found the courage to walk out into the poison and discovered, like everyone before them, that it ended. They're taken in, fed, welcomed. The village grows, one freed people at a time. But freedom was not free. Juliet spends her nights on the beach, alone, looking up at the stars. Because Lucas taught her the stars, once, with a chart spread across the bed they shared. He never got to see this sky. Neither did Donald, who died in the dark, bringing down the machine he'd built. the people who broke the cage mostly didn't live to walk out of it. And that's the whole terrible point of the Silo trilogy. These silos were never really about survival. If you strip it all away, the nanos, the shifts, the cleaning, the 50 buried worlds, what you're left with is control. A handful of powerful men who became so certain the future was doomed, and so certain that ordinary people couldn't be trusted with the truth or with their own choices, that they murdered the entire world to build a system where they'd never have to. They didn't bury humanity to save it. They buried it to manage it, to keep it obedient and frightened and small. And what finally beats them isn't an army or a weapon or some outside miracle. It's the exact thing they were sure didn't exist. Ordinary people, shown the truth, choosing to do the right thing. Allison, who couldn't stop pulling on a thread. Holston, who followed her out of love. Juliet, who fixed what she was told to leave broken. Donald, who tore down his own life's work. Charlotte and Walker, and a young guard named Darcy who simply listened. Every single one of them was the answer to the question the founders built their whole world to avoid asking. What if you just told people the truth and trusted them with it? The founders bet 500 years and the entire human race that the answer was catastrophe. And they were wrong. That's wool, shift, and dust, the story of a lie big enough to bury the world, and the ordinary, stubborn, breakable people who finally refused to keep it. If this pulled you in, the books go so much deeper than any hour-long retelling can. They're absolutely worth your time. And tell me in the comments, which of them stayed with you? Holston on the hill? Solo in the dark? Donald at the reactor? Or Juliet on that beach, under the stars Lucas gave her? Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.